before we go, I think we have about 10 minutes left. Let me ask you first about the Texas two-step.
Oh, you got to get.
I knew you were going to get there.
Anybody want to step up and defend it?
Well, since it was of most relevance in the democratic process, I'll speak about it first.
One man, one vote.
And
one person, one vote.
I will say that no one, I think, outside of Texas had particularly focused on that process before it took place. I think there are a lot of questions about what sort of validation there is of whether people vote in the primary in the daytime and thereby qualified to participate in the caucus in the evening. And moreover, the fact that the results could be different for the two candidates between the primary and the caucus, I think bothers people. Now, if you go back to what I was saying a minute ago, you might say, okay, one reflects one level of involvement by voters, and the other one reflects the more activist and informed voters. Right. Nonetheless, historically, I'm told, the purpose of the two-step process was to make sure that those who were most involved in the party actually got to go to the convention.
There had to be something like that.
Management protection.
It's like a weekend away.
And that's not necessarily a national democratic value.
For the Republicans, proportional distribution of delegates or winner take all? You still like winner take all?
Winner take all. As a matter of fact, talking about votes on the Rules Committee, we had a motion made in the meeting in Albuquerque to go to proportional that failed for want of a second. Mm-hmm. We can have proportional voting in the Republican Party.
You just don't.
And no, some states do.
A couple of states.
Some states do, but it's left up to the states, as you pointed out before.
And whereas the democratic rules require proportional voting
so what's the argument for it as opposed to why stick with that?
The Democratic Party is very convinced is very committed to reflecting by a fair reflection the division of the voters in each state. That is part of obviously what lengthened the process on the back end this time.
Yep.
And
Hillary Clinton certainly thinks so.
Many people argue about why have superdelegates, and people have various theories as to why they were created. There were really two reasons they were created and then expanded several decades ago. They were created partly because of what I talked about a minute ago with regard to Texas. The elected officials and party activists felt they were being left out of the process. They didn't want to run against their constituents once we required primaries and caucuses to become delegates. So one way was to give them an avenue without creating controversy in the party. But the other reason that superdelegates, I believe, are part of the democratic process is that if you have proportional representation, it was recognized back in the 80s that you could end up with essentially no decision. Right. And superdelegates, not so much whether it's reflecting the will of the people or reflecting their state or national vote or whatever, but basically bringing finality and conclusion to the process are one of the motivations.
But if you look at Ohio, what happened on the Democrat side in Ohio with proportional representation, Senator Clinton ended up with one more delegate than Senator Obama, even though she won the state by 10 points.
Mm-hmm. It's complicated by the fact that we also reflect how the outcome in each congressional district.
Yeah.
So if she won certain congressional districts really large, it might look like she was way ahead statewide, but was only way ahead in a particular congressional district.
Or in the inverse, in this particular case, for instance, the largest number of delegates you had was from the inner city.
So true in Texas, especially.
Before we get to
Stephanie Tubbs Jones district in Ohio, the 11th district, I think, all the delegates went to Senator Obama, even though she had endorsed Senator Clinton.
Before we get too far down into the weeds, which makes the point again, about the importance and the value of rules, because everything that we've said is reflected by rules and people's attempt to use those to their advantage. I did want to make a couple of more points on caucuses, in that, at least the way it's practiced in Iowa, is that they engage in discussion about issues. We focus on just, well, what are the results? Give me the percentage numbers. I don't even care how many people it is. Just who's in first, second, and third. That's the way.
Texas doesn't.
Texas doesn't. But that the caucuses, at least in Iowa, begin with citizens engaging about issues in the context of their own state and why it's important and which candidate really reflects those issues. The other thing is what you might call runoff voting, so that you get to vote, but if your candidate does not hit the threshold as set in the state of Iowa, then you have a chance to vote for your second choice, where in the primary system, it's all or nothing. So those are just 2 points on caucusing, though caucusing is done differently in every state as well. We have 24 hours things.
Which is a reflection of democracy.
Which is a reflection of democracy.
And
Exactly.
And that the individual states, again, act as laboratories for different methods of voting and participation. And I would say participation is our common goal, increasing participation, and that in effect creates an increase in the quality of our democracy, which is what our whole effort here is.